Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm going to read some stories from I've seen in the newspaper here from 1762. Um, see, hopefully you'll like them. What stories I got. Okay, let's get to reading some stories from 1762. Right, good evening. All right, so we'll read some stories from 1762. This one here I found kind of interesting. Madrid, um, according to the letter from Lima, there is a Spaniard living at Kamala, I think so, a town in Peru, who is 140 years of age. He has been three times married, had 15 children by his first wife, um, four by his second wife, and nine by his third wife. Besides, the nature of the children in the internal between each marriage, he have lived to live his fifth generation, fifth generation, and can reckon uh, profound that have sprung from him. These words are so they put the F a lot in. He never got. He was never not sick, nor does not even feel principle about old age, being now able to walk half a league. The truth of this is frail to be well attractive. That's pretty good. Be married three times and lived 140 years old. That's pretty good. This is back in 1762. Let's see here. Well, there's that Man of War. Let's see here. What's this? London, November 28th. The active measure taken in fitting our fleets in other departments of the Navy, Army, and Navy are more necessary than ever. This time, when the national in general are difference with the later charge, for should though now in power of doing nothing, even their measurements, though even well taken. I'm trying to read as much, and be attended with ill success. It is clarified to for that it will add greatly to defend the people. By a private letter from Paris, which come from left Fendered Mail, we have advised that the court of France, having been informed of fitting out our Portsmouth expedition fleets and transports to frail the marina, to tempt to render of that island. What island, I wonder? Have ordered 15 men of war to frail from the roughs with the troops and stores on board in the defense, and that the African American slaves at Marina were off to be armed to act in the concert with the French troops against the British forces. But our fleet on the coast keeps a good lookout, so perform the French squadron will not be able to frail without their acknowledgement. And if so, we may possibly flip them on their port. I think it is. Exchange to Spain has altered great within a few days. His Grace, the Duke of Bedford, is appointed Lord Privy Seal. Colonel Clive is to be made peer of Ireland by the title of Baron. We hear from Bacaldel something in the island of skies that immediate shall hearing appear in profound in lock in the path. About 18 vessels from Bolton, Campbellton, something, and the Shire of Aggie are playing with great success, but there's room for many more. By exile of a letter of Captain John Thompson of Mary and Anne, bound from Bristol, we learn that the Pilgrimage was attacked by a Duke de Nile. Boy, it's hard to read. Of 16 guns in sight of the Spanish. Go back here. Man of war of line full of soldiers. Admiral fired in privateers and signed, sir, and told the Captain Thomas after they had been brought to I have received as I want to move on to another thing here. I swear. I don't know. Hey Mustang, how you doing? I know Gibble's probably still asleep. Let me try something else here. Get to a different year. Let's get to. I saw something about George Washington. Let's see in March. All right, let's see here. I saw there talk about George Washington somewhere. I was going through this last night. Like short ones. Is it Boston? Let's see Boston. What's this one? 1765. Okay, let's do this one. Philadelphia, January 30th. Exact extra of the letter from the gentleman in the London to befriend here. Date November 9th. I have pleasure to affirm you there is a plan and form for your relief of the new ministry who are really friends to America. It is not your mother country, it is the king. It is not your king. Opposite you, but it was a bad ministry who carried things too far as to bring University Oldham to himself. February 6th, our advice by the private letter from Cork are the people of Ireland highly commend the opposition oppose the North American have given to the Stamp Act, and that it was generally opinion there that law would be repealed or at left plundered on the meaning of the Parliament. Now, Captain what? Matin? Something. From South Carolina, we have advised that the inhabitable there has been greatly alarmed with the report of intent resurrection of the African Americans to massacre the white people throughout that province, which was to have been put in execution on Christmas Eve and during the holidays, but was happily discovered by African American women that after they discover Hannibal were under arms day and night during the holiday, and I ignore that this is fine. Fear made to find out the ringleader. The circumstance appeared very strong against them. Many firearm ring funded found canceled. At several plantations in the country, the hour of arms were found to have their touch holes plugged up, that 4 or 5 of the ringleaders were in custody, and others daily bring in, but their trials have not come on when he fell. One fell. Yeah. So a direct letter from Northampton Country in this province, January 31st, 1766. Magistrate of this country is taken in commendation that repeats the complaints of the inhabitants for what of a due deliberation of justice by, I have no idea what that is, up to the courts of law, have resolved from the extreme necessary of copy to open the courts and proceed to beneficial use. By their order, all the law offices are open according to the extra of the letter from St. Christopher, date December 23rd, to affidavit failed to be from New York for a pier off of St. John Harbor, but they would not go in. Account of the stamp taking place there, but proceed further. And the people made heavy complaints, and not a man in the iron wood. It's interesting. Well, come on, get up there. Keep the stamp officer company through before he was universally beloved. For that he refrained his office, fence which Pearl Vessel have been cleared without stamps, and office go there as usual without them. Man, really hard to read. I had George Washington. There was a George Washington. He was at a battle, and George Washington. I'm trying to find it here. Colonel, who was later in the barracks. Oh, here you go. Here's something. Talks about Governor Rogers. Here we go. Let me see here. Where does it start? Let's start up here. Is it certain St. Rogers? Don't know. Well, let's check the change the thing. Let's see here. How they write things so much back then, it's just unbelievable. Does it show how much it cost? Hmm. I know I saw George Washington. They talk about George Washington. He was at a battle um, while the Constitution was being wrote. Let's see here. All right, so what's this here? I wish I could find it. I know I had it. Great Britain. Some things I've seen that a lot of black African Americans were being sold to hired. Well, where'd it go? I thought that would be kind of easy. Chris, a poet corner on Christmas Day, forever held precious morning on which the Son of God was born to have a fulfill race. Devotion, gratitude, and love should every moral um, profound move in every heart take place. How very the debt of God we owe, who lent his only son to know the bitter pang of death, and from perdition, man to faith. Oh, death to the trumpets and grave. He yielded up his breath, and yet not to rulers of the earth was sure revealed the woundless birth, but to the laurel wind who watch their fancy flocks by night, suddenly around the face of light, illumination all the plains. Glory to God, goodwill to man. The choir of angels treat began with a melody divine. Ref- ref- Responsive echo catches the found all nature's tuck with awe perform. A lifting ear inclined to save from the misery or woes the race of mortals have below. This day Saviour born, nor regal pimp, pump, or fender grace, the holy Jesus dwelling place, nor majestic adorn, but in a manger you'll find the friend and savior of mankind, and all lending bands arrive. The folks, a flood of glory around them, break the tradition of heaven comfort. So I'm trying to read these. It's kind of weird, hard to say. Get off me. Let's see here. There's one. I tend to leave the colony immediately for a few months. William Thompson. Intend to leave the colony immediately. Samuel Cuthbert. What's going on? It's how people go on vacation. See if I can be able to type it in. Where is the search box? P3, okay. There you go. Oh. Here we go. Our boys and girls. Washington. Washington started his career as a soldier when he was only a boy. During the Great Britain campaign against the West Indies, George Washington's half-brother Lawrence found a friend in Jacob von Braun, a Dutchman who later came to Virginia. Jacob von Braun took special interest in George. Then, 10 years of age, drilled him a sword exercise and taught him what he knew of science of war. Washington's love for things in military did not grow less as he became older. After his first battle, he wrote to his brother, I heard the bullets whistling about me, and believe me, there is something charming in that sound. The portrait painter Stuart once said to General Lee that Washington had a quick temper, but that he had it under wonderful control, although always very particular about his appearance. George Washington was no dandy. He tells what he thinks and the subject in the later letter written to his nephew in 1783. He wrote, do not conceive that fine clothes make fine men any more than fine feather make fine birds. A plain genteel dress is more admired, and obtain more credit than lace in embroidery. In the eyes of the judicious and sensible, Solomon gives the following description of George Washington. Dressed at a certain level, he was dressed in black velvet, his hair full dressed powder and gathered behind a large silk bag, yellow gloves in his hands, holding a crooked hat with crocodile in it, and the edges adorned with black feathers about an inch deep. He wore knee and sock buckles and a long sword. Captain Mercer said of Washington, he is the straight as an Indian, measuring 6'2" in his stockings, and the weighing 175 pounds. King's treasure. Little George Washington. When little Ruth went to visit Great Aunt Ruth in the South one winter, she found a very wonderful place. Great Aunt Ruth's family in the long age had known General George Washington. Her pretty home had in it the Washington coat of arms hanging on the wall. She had some pretty slippers and fans that had belonged to Miss Washington, and dear me, how many stories she knew. Ruth's brother were trying to grow up to be brave and true as George Washington was. Oh, you are just a girl, they say. George Washington isn't your hero. You didn't grow up to be like him. Great Aunt Ruth saw the tears of the little Ruth's eyes. Ruth was quite sure she loves George Washington as much as the boys did, but after all, she was a little girl and they were boys. We all talked about it here in the garden. Love, said dear Aunt Ruth, in her quaint, sweet way, and she took Ruth's hand and called the boys from their play. They looked a little ashamed when they saw Ruth, distress on their faces, but they repeat just what they had said before. You see, Aunt Ruth, dear, said Harry, Ruth is a girl. She ought to be some woman, best not George Washington. She couldn't go to war or fight or do anything brave like George Washington, even if she wanted to. But I want George Washington. Well, Ruth hushed and said Aunt Ruth gently. Then she said, you boys, yes, you see, boys, it is just this way. General Washington was a very courteous and gentle to ladies, and the little girls whenever he met them. Very kind, very polite. He never hurt them feelings, or if he did, he was always sorry and said so. Besides, he loved little girls and he liked them to be liked him. Once when a dear little girl was so frightened that she could not courtesy to him, as her mother had told her to, he was very tender to her. She fell down at his feet and sobbed and cried just because she was frightened in meeting so great men. General picked her up in his arms and carried her out into the garden, and that there they walked and talked together till her tears disappeared, and smile came instead, as of for Ruth growing up to be just like General George Washington. I see no reason at all why she cannot do so. In her own sweet way, she cannot be the great general, that is true, but she can be truthful and noble, and gentle and brave, and kind, just as you boys can be, just as George Washington was. If the general had hurt a little girl's feelings, would have he would have said, sorry, asked Gordon, while Henry kicked at the dust on the garden path. Somehow it was easier to plan to be a soldier than to say, I'm sorry. Yes, he surely would have done so, said Aunt Ruth quietly. Then we would have to say, Gordon, Ruth We didn't mean to be so hard coming across, hard come on the plate war with us. You can be a Red Cross nurse and bind up the wounds. We're awfully sorry, Ed Harry. We truly are. Ruth, it ain't, Ruth. You are more like the dear General now. As the little admirer of George Washington ran happily back to play pictured story paper. Let's see. There's that one. There's this one here. All right. The treasure heirloom. In certain families, there is an old Bible, a little Bible, one that belongs to the small boy of a family. It was the dearest treasure for this little Bible. Has a story which makes a very precious to the boys who owned it. It is kept under lock and key, and when it is taken out of the old desk to be shown to, be, to the visitors, it is handled very carefully. You'll see it is so old that it's falling to pieces. Why don't they have rebound it, you ask? Well, for this reason, it was bought by George Washington long ago. This is the story of old Carl would tell you all about it. If you want to his if you want to go to his house, when one Carl's great grandfather was a little boy, it happened that George Washington was visiting at his home for a few days. One day the children were wishing for things. What would you like to have if you could have it your wish? Asked George Washington of the smallest boy. I wish I had a Bible all my very own that I could take to church with me, said the little fellow. You shall have it, said George Washington, and he sent the little boy a Bible in which he wrote in his own handwriting from George Washington. Then, as the years went by, that little book grew more precious to that boy. When he grew up, went to his son, and when his son grew up, it went to his boy. And so down the line, till a last little Carl owned it, exchanged it. There, what's this one over here? That's about George Washington. Nope. All right, let's go back. Uh, One here. Had all the years. Hmm. Let's see here. Matthews. Here we go. No, not yet. Oh, all right. Here. Okay. Baltimore, January 14th. Several carriers have arrived Um, uh, Prints are left, which dispatchers to honor Congress, I think it is, from its elect excellency during George Washington to content of which have not yet transpired. All accounts, however, agreed with excellence in headquarters are now in Morristown, where his troops are in the high spirit in the conference of their late success and were determined to take example of their gallant leader and patiently bearing fatigue and hardship a winter campaign rather than suffer their country to be exposed to the further ravage of the barbarian foes. I think it is that the enemy headquarters were filled with Brunswick, but that they were taking every necessary precautions of the retreat to New York. That they have been several recent in various parts of Jersey state between our troops and the enemy, in which the former have always been successful, but practically are not very elated, that we must defer saying more on until we hear further than what we have taken number of prisoners. Confidence quarterly stores and the enemy are now catching nothing but Tartars in Jersey. We are hear that number of Hessians prisoners are on their way to this town. A letter from Philadelphia mentions that a continental body of New England troops have landed on the east end of Long Island and were on their march towards New York, conference of which General Howe, he've been obligated to detach a continental body of troops that way. The inhabitants of New York having a great to American thunder. Well, this is kind of hard to read on this one, but it sounds like he's in a battle. All right. Well, I want to stop there, but hey, thanks for coming. I appreciate it. thanks, thanks, Mustang. So, I'll try more. Hey, thanks for coming. I appreciate it.